Nancy and I want to welcome to the program Julie Matthews.
Thank you.
You are a certified nutrition consultant and the author of Nourishing Hope, and the best resource that there is for autism nutrition.
Thank you.
So thrilled to have you. We got to talk with you a little bit before during Ask Dr. Doreen, but as parents, we're thrilled to have an opportunity to talk to you face to face.
Great.
Lots of questions.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. I want to start with, for viewers who didn't get an opportunity to see you before, how and why did you become an autism nutritionist?
Great question. Well, I started really early in my studies as a nutritionist, learning about children and what was going on with them and why there was so much hyperactivity and how all of these artificial things might be a problem. And very early on, just as I guess the universe would have it, I met a man that recovered his children from autism, and he spent 3 hours telling me about the biochemistry and the diets. And this was, 10 or 12 years ago, before there was really that much out about it.
Right.
So when I found out there are things you can do and nobody knows, that was it. And then when you meet the families and you see how much pain and suffering there is and how profound some of these really simple changes can be, that was it. I just did nothing but that from then on, and I've been focused on it all ever since.
The profound changes, I just want to comment. I was talking to your husband a little bit earlier out in the waiting room, and I mentioned to him that within basically a week of starting my son Wyatt, now age 11, when he was 3, putting him on gluten-free, casein-free, GFCF, within a week or two, he went from one-word utterances to stringing 3 words together.
Wow.
If that's not a testament to it, I don't know what is.
That's amazing, yes.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
We had huge behavior changes when we went GFCF, and my son, who had regressed and lost virtually all of his
So did
language, within a week of going gluten-free, where we started with a 5-word vocabulary, he would add 5 words per day. He wasn't stringing them together, so that
Wow.
3-word thing, that's pretty impressive. But
Yeah.
he was
That's all impressive, both of those.
really amazing.
Yeah.
And so when parents, and we know that not everyone has those results or that quickly, but when parents ask, why do you do this? That's what I say.
And that's what I say too. It's the very first thing I tell a parent to do, besides get into the best ABA program they can find with the most amount of hours, is to try GFCF.
Yes.
So anyway, back to you.
Okay. I'm sold.
So you saw all of the amazing changes. You were hearing about these changes. You decided to devote yourself to children with autism and nutrition.
Yes.
And how did you go about studying that, and what did you start to find out?
Well, I started studying even when I was still in school. So everything I studied was always in its relationship to autism. I'm learning about the liver this week. Okay, well, what's going on with the liver and autism? So I did a lot of foundational studies at school, but really almost everything I learned was reading studies, talking to researchers, going to conferences, listening to them. I mean, I had one researcher, she doesn't know this, Susan Owens is one of my favorites. I would bring her recordings to work with me and just listen to them for hours and hours. I have little flashcards of the PowerPoint presentation because I was working at Whole Foods at the time, and before the store opened I would spend hours just re-listening over and over and over to understand all of this because it was so interesting. But really it was all pretty much self-study because it's the cutting edge, right? We're piecing the science together as we speak. And so really going with the scientists and the researchers and the doctors that were doing this was really the way that I learned most of what I did. And then, of course, since then has been a lot of clinical experience of working with families and seeing what happens.
Okay.
And you literally had to write the book as you went.
Nourishing Hope.
Yeah.
In fact, I use my own book as a reference, really, because I put everything I wanted to know in there. And sometimes I actually, very often I'll go back and I'll just, some of the charts in the back or whatever.
And let's talk about that book again. It's called Nourishing Hope.
Yep, it's called Nourishing Hope for Autism.
Right. And where can parents get it?
So they can get it at nourishinghope.com, which is my website, and there's tons of free information and other things for them.
And you also do webinars. Can they find out about your webinars on that?
Absolutely. They can find out about all my different learning tools there. They can also get it on Amazon and various other.
Because what I find, Shannon, and I know you experience this as well, many parents, because they're so overwhelmed, Julie, they're so overwhelmed with just the diagnosis, where do they go, what do they do, and they tend to say to me, I can't take that on. I can't make those dietary changes. I've got other kids at home. What am I going to do? Am I going to clean out the pantry? My other kids won't eat it. And then some of them will flat out say, my child won't eat that kind of food because all they eat is Cheetos and bread.
Right, and cheese,
chicken nuggets,
and milk,
and
everything that they're craving
with gluten and dairy.
Can I ask, why do children that really should not be eating these foods crave those foods?
Yes, good question. That's actually fairly common in the world of nutrition and diet for some reason. It depends on the reason. In the case of gluten and casein, it's because for some of the children, they're actually creating opiates, forming opiates from those foods, and literally it's like being on morphine or heroin. They're all opiates, and so they are addicted to the foods.
Right, so those opioids, they form something in the brain that makes the children more autistic, but for the child, that's a euphoric feeling.
Yes.
For us, that's, you know, if you give my child a milkshake, forget it. I mean, I'm going to have 4 hours of woo, 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 not to mention diarrhea.
Right.
So it's literally something they're craving.
Yes.
So that's a hard thing to get them off the foods they're craving.
I think yes, and it's hard for a parent to imagine with all of the stress going on in their world. How are they going to take their child that's probably already a picky eater, only eating a few things? How am I going to take away every single thing that they eat? What are they going to eat? So it becomes a very daunting, understandable hurdle for the parents. But what I try to encourage them is, on the other side of that are so many improvements that a lot of the overwhelm goes away, and then as you do the diet for a while, as you probably can attest as well, it becomes second nature. It doesn't become much more difficult than any way you would feed your child after the beginning.
And you know what? Somebody said to me, a very powerful statement, if your child had diabetes, you would not let them go eat all the sugar in the world.
Right.
Because you would consider it a life or death situation.
Absolutely.
This should not be any different, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I had a couple of battles with my mother because my mother would say to me, well, when is he going to get to eat ice cream? And I said to her finally, the thing that she began to understand, I said, you know what, Mom, he can have ice cream today. He just won't be able to talk for 2 weeks afterward. And she went, oh. Okay, that took care of that, and she never worried about that again.
I know. I remember complaining to Dr. Andrew Levinson, our biomedical doctor. I can't take him to birthday parties anymore. He can't eat the cake. And he goes, consider him lucky. Yeah. Because all those other kids that are eating all that, you know, that sugar and junk, they're just, they're poisoning their bodies. Your child is, you know, you're taking care of your child.
Absolutely.
And turn it from something that's, you know, a burden to something that actually you're doing great for your child.
Right, or you feel like, oh, well, I'm not being, you know, maybe I'm, you know, not that you're being a bad parent, but you feel like, oh, what they wanted, and I want them to have it. But really the opposite, but really the opposite is true, is that you're, you know, feeding them with love by not feeding them all the garbage, but feeding them the healthy foods.
I think you've hit it on the head, this emotional issue.